The origin of Sanskrit language is considered to have started from the Damaru of Lord Shiva. So there are 6 parts in a mantra.
Okay.
So it is Charushi, Chandas, Devata, Bijam, Shakti and Kiraka.
Namaskar and welcome to Clyde Samvada, brought to you by the Hindu Temple of Scotland. Today we are with Dr. Sreevas. Doctor, how are you?
I'm doing good.
So today we are going to talk about mantras. So mantras, as we all know, are a very important part of all the rituals which are performed in the temples and even outside the temples. Any ritual in Sanatana Dharma and Hinduism,
Yes.
mantras are a very important part.
Yes.
So doctor, would you like to tell us what a mantra is, and then we will see how it goes further on.
Sure. So from a definition standpoint, mantra means mananat trayate iti mantra, which is something that protects upon repetition. That's the sort of root etymology of the word mantra. If you think about the origin of mantra, we need to also think about origin of Sanskrit as a language. The origin of Sanskrit language is considered to have started from the Damaru of Lord Shiva.
Okay.
So you might have heard about the Nataraja dance, the famous Nataraja dance of Shiva.
Yeah, the statue is the most famous. Yeah.
Statue is the most famous. So in that statue, you would see Shiva holding the Damaru in his hand.
Yeah.
And it's said that when Shiva rang his Damaru, the sounds of the syllables that came out of that, there were 14 syllables of it. Those 14 syllables became the root for the 57 Sanskrit letters that got developed from it.
Oh.
So to understand mantra, we also need to part understand origin of Sanskrit as a language, within which most of these mantras are then scripted.
Superb. So it like basically authenticates that it's just not that it has so many divine layers to it,
Yes.
that given by the Lord Shiva himself, and then the mantras have been, like, I would say, formulated,
Yes.
because they're kind of formula, if it
Yes.
is right to say,
Yes.
by the Maharishis who were that time researchers and scientists. Yeah.
So it's also kind of considered that mantra is sort of seen
Okay.
by the rishis. So it's like you write it, but you first visualize it or see it, or you kind of get it from the cosmos in that sense. And that's how it kind of considered to be originated in that sense.
I think something similar was by the Ramanujan, the great mathematician. He also said that the Devi comes to him and gives the mantra to him, and that's it. Like, he does not know the meaning, but it still will make sense in thousands of years.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Sreevas, so when it comes to the mantra, so are there are different types of mantra for every deity we hear, so is there, what is specific about the mantras, are there like some mantras to be done inside the temple, or some not to be done, some to be done by the priests or who have received that mantra from their guru or somebody, or some can be chanted by anyone?
Okay.
So there are so many misconceptions and confusions about this. If you could just clarify on that.
So I think we should first start from fundamentals of a mantra. So there are 6 parts in a mantra.
Okay.
So it is Charushi, Chandas, Devata, Bijam, Shakti and Kiraka.
Okay.
So in a temple you would have seen the priest do like touch different body parts like this.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically in that process invoking the mantra.
Okay.
So Rishi, when you touch the forehead, is basically the Rishi who had envisioned the mantra. So we talked about the mantra being envisioned in that sense, right? So that is Rishi envisioning it being invoked first, and then you have Chandas, which you kind of touch near the mouth, because you kind of chant the mantra, right? So that's when the rhythm part comes in. So that's the meter or the rhythm in which you say the mantra.
The mantra should be chanted
In. So there are 7 popular meters, like Gayatri, Anushtup, Trishtup. So there are these different meters, and then each different mantras have different meters to it.
Okay.
And then you have Devata, which is for the deity for whom that mantra is specific to.
Okay.
So typically that's the when you talk about energy, there are masculine and feminine forms of the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So the Devata represents the masculine form of the energy. Shakti represents the feminine form of the energy. So any mantra itself has both forms of the energy, both masculine form as well as feminine form of the energy.
So every mantra has two.
Both forms. So there's Devata and Shakti for each of the mantra. So there's both forms in any mantra.
Okay.
And then you have what's called as Bij. Bij is the seed syllable of a mantra. So a popular mantra, for instance, is what's called as Rudra, which is in praise of Lord Shiva. So for that part of the chanting, when we do the same thing, the Bijam is Namah Shivaya.
Okay.
So that's the Bij mantra for Rudram as a set of mantras in that sense. So that's 5 of it, right? And the final one is Kilagam. Kilagam is something like a lock. So it's like, because we want the mantra and its power to be used only for the most appropriate purposes, there's a certain sort of a lock, like a password lock of sorts, right? So we have that which ensures that you are using it for its ideal purpose and masking it from inappropriate use of the mantra in that sense.
Okay.
So those are the 6 parts of a mantra in that sense.
Okay. So I would like to highlight about, the rhythm part first, because the Rishi part, okay, the person whichever Rishi saw the mantra is okay. Like how important, like it's coming from a layman who does not know even how to pronounce even, 1 or 2 mantras, right? So how important is the rhythm part? Like, is there, because it's like a formula and it's a very, like
intricate,
should be done right kind of thing. Yeah. Chanting a mantra in a wrong rhythm, does it have any repercussions?
So I have a 2-part answer to it, right? So one part of the answer is the Devata Bhava or the devotion that you have with the divine is probably superseding everything else. So as a child, you might not be saying some of these mantras in its most appropriate tone, but then Devata, if you have the bhakti or the devotion for the Lord, he's forgiving. Or he or she is forgiving of whatever lay people do in that sense, right? So from that logic, it's okay.
Okay.
But coming to specifics, you have something called a swara. Okay. So for mantras, typically there is an upper note, there is a stable note, and there is a lower note. Okay. So and then also the double higher notes. So it's like so you have different connotations to it, right? So you have that rhythmic element. That rhythmic element brings 2 things.
Okay.
One is that it's through the rhythm that we tend to remember things. So if I ask you, if I give you a book and then ask you to remember what's there on a page of the book and ask you to repeat verse by verse or words by word, would you do it?
Rarely. Like
Okay.
if the shortest book, if it is 2-page book, that's a different thing.
Okay.
But very rare chance.
Okay. But if I ask you to sing your favorite song, would you do it?
Yes, anytime. Yeah.
Okay. So an average page of the book has about 200 to 250 words. Okay. A song, rhythm, lyrics also probably has somewhat similar. Why do you remember the song and not the page of the book?
Song maybe because like I've done it so many times.
Repetition.
Yeah, repetition. I've heard it so many times.
Okay.
And no matter how bad you sing, but still you keep chanting. But mantra, I consider it so sacred that I won't just do it, start anywhere. And B, I can't think of like many more excuses, but I just won't remember it.
Okay. The reason why you are not remembering it is because of the musical connotation to it.
Okay.
So when there is melody, the melody is what helps you remember the words. When you read prose, there's no melody in it, right? So it's just A, B, C, D, A.
Yeah.
So that gives you the remembrance power. And in the mantra, when you have these rhythmic connotations to it, point 1, it helps you with retention of the remembrance. Second is, it's about the interaction between sound and other elements of the earth.
Okay.
So there is fire, water, sound, different elements of earth. The sound works alongside water, and you would have seen these popular videos of when you play a piano or some sort of
the patterns forming.
The patterns forming with fire, the pattern forming with water,
sand and everything.
All of that, right? So that same effect happens when you are chanting a mantra also.
Okay.
What is there in a temple is basically these elements of the earth, right? So the interaction between sound and these elements of the earth create what we quote unquote call as vibrations.
Okay.
Because it's essentially interaction between elements of the earth. So chanting the mantra in the right way has this effect in terms of interactions with other parts of the elements of the earth.
Okay. So is it right to say, let's say, I want to have the water get a like medicinal like quality to generate it with using a mantra. If done right, it will have the best of it. If not done right, maybe less of it. And if done completely wrong, then maybe don't know.
something along those lines.
Okay, something close to that. Well, that's nice to hear. So, see, like when you said about the first A and B part, so thank you for actually dividing it, because that's what the reason I have also heard from people. So, it stuck to my head, okay, that either you don't do the mantra or just do it right. Okay, so when I used to hear people just chanting mantras loud, and there are so many things, like sometimes people say until and unless a guru has given you a mantra, don't chant it loud, and some mantras are not at all to be chanted loud. So I was like, why just keep it under your breath, don't say it loud, because I have heard that it's not right to do. Then the same answer used to come from people that it is my devotion. And then my counter answer to them is, I have been like initiated into Bhakti Yoga. All I know is that works when you don't have materialistic desires from that mantra. But that's not maybe the case with you.
Yes.
So could backfire this time.
Yeah.
So my actual question to this is there any chance that people should be aware of these things, that rather not chant a mantra until unless you know how to do it?
Ideally, most of these mantras are kind of given from Guru. You kind of say that Guru Mukhe, you study Guru Mukhe as in from the face of the Guru. You kind of initiate into this and then you kind of learn it. But in modern technology world, there are gurus on YouTube channels as well.
Yeah.
So and there are a lot of channels which has these sort of structured approaches to mantras and things like that. So I think through those mediums also now we are kind of picking up on a lot of these things. So I personally don't see that as wrong. So we kind of pick it up from that way as well.
Okay, it's a loose end, so it's left open and people can just chant and then see how it goes.
As long as the bhakti is there, I think that's the core to the core.
Yeah, so devotion is number one. If that's there, then you are free to do it. Yeah. And so moving forward, so we go to the Rishi, and if you just remind me, then we go to the Swara. The third part was?
Rishi, Chandas, Devata.
Yeah, the Devata, whichever we are invoking. Yeah.
And then Bijam, Shakti and Kilakam.
Okay. So when we talk about the Kilakam part, so Bijam, Shakti, that is all in the mantra which the person is going to chant.
Yes.
The Kilakam, is there a specific way to do the Kilakam, or is it just it comes into that process when you are before chanting the mantra?
So for every mantra, this is already kind of set in place, right? I kind of told you that for Bijam, for Arudram is like Shiva, Namah Shivaya. So this is already set. You kind of invoking that while you invoke the mantra, and that's the process by which you kind of do it. So Kilakam is also already defined by the rishis themselves. Okay. It's just that appropriate use of the Kilakam helps unlock the power of it.
Yeah. So my question came into because I was initiated into Shambhavi Mahamudra. Okay. So part comes in that where you do the locks. Okay. They're also called the bandhas.
Okay.
So is it similar to that? Is it a breath control and you lock at some moment? Is it that kind of lock we are talking about? Or is it the mantra when it is chanted, the lock isn't within that?
So what you are talking about is more lock from a more of a physical lock.
Yes, that's a physical lock.
It's like a physical air breathing lock of sorts. Here we are talking about power of the mantra being locked and unlocked. Okay. So this is probably kind of categorize it more as a philosophical realm of locking and unlocking, rather than as a physical lock and lock in that sense.
So is it safe to say that a person who is going to chant the mantra, their clarity of mind is very important, that for what purpose they are going to do, so that it just does not leak away.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Sreevas, for giving us such an elaborate answer on what mantra is and the origin of Sanskrit language. And we're looking forward for many more episodes like that. Thank you so much. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.